Hello, welcome to our YouTube channel. My name is Dora Chavarría. I'm the principal financial consultant at Mayan Technologies, and today we're going to talk about a very important topic, and which I think it's our main differentiator with other consulting firms. And this is how we tackle complex technical projects. For that, I have my coworker here, Ernesto Álvarez, who is our principal software architect, to talk a little bit more about this topic. How are you, Ernesto?
Hi, Dora. I'm doing great. I'm happy to be here discussing this very important topic for us at Mayan.
Okay, so to get started, what would you say it's the first step that we need to do in order to start?
Well, I think the first step is we need to start the conversation with the customer. So we need the very first thing we do at Mayan is we do what we call a discovery call. Okay. So we talk to the customer. They give us the requirement first, and this is where the dynamic begins. Like, we need to start asking a lot of questions. We need to say what you're looking for, what is your end goal, what are you looking for to do here. So that's very important for us, that very first step, because that's going to give us a grasp of what the customer needs. Something that is very interesting is that we need to help the customer understand what they want. Sometimes the customers, they come with an idea, but when we start asking questions and we are presenting some small details, the customer starts realizing like, oh, I didn't think of that. So that's very important for us to have a really early on, so that we understand completely all the implications. Because what it might seem like a small change, it could have a great impact in the system. So we need to be very careful with that. We need to ask a lot of questions as much as possible, making sure we understand really what the customer wants. We need to take a lot of notes in this initial call. We need to let the customer talk through the requirement. Ask the customer a lot of questions is going to help us that, and the taking notes, I think, is going to really help us for the next step.
Okay, yeah, that is true. That is I think the most important step, right? And from there, we can have then the internal discussion between the different departments, between the technical side and the operational side, or the
Actually, that conversation is really important, because the functional side, which can be financial or manufacturing, they know the functional aspect of the ERP, but when it comes to the technical details, what can we do with the system? That's when we come in, the technical team. So that internal discussion that we have after the discovery call with the customer, with all the notes that we have, we start doing this brainstorming process. First of all, we start the discussion saying, okay, is it something that we can do with base functionality, or do we really need to do a customization? So the technical team might not know all of the functionality, which is why we rely on the functional team to say, okay, you know what, maybe with a combination of base screen, we can accomplish our setup, we can accomplish what the customer wants, and we don't really need to do a customization there. So brainstorming idea and identify a clear scope of the requirement and have this internal discussion is going to help us set the scope for the project and say, okay, you know what, we cannot use base functionality. We're going to have to use a customization. Okay, how many components? What are we talking about here? BPMs, integration, or anything? So that type of discussion is where we start defining the scope, and it's going to give us an idea of what we are dealing with. So once we have all that information, we need to go back to the customer. And I think that's where the next step comes into play.
Yeah, that's true, because it's not a matter of like reinventing the wheel. Sometimes we can use what Epicor already has out of the box and just try to use some functions, or take it like to the next level with some customizations, but not reinventing the whole process, right? True. Okay, so after we've done these steps, now what would be the next step?
So I guess we need to go back to the customer with our findings, saying, you know what, we can do this with setup or customization. Do you think it will work? So we need to ask them for some feedback. Or if if it's a customization, we need to be sure that we're on the same channel. We need to understand what the customer wants to accomplish and make sure that we gather our scope is actually what the customer wants. So we need to go back and say, okay, this is what we have. This is what we can do. Is it what you're looking for? Do we need to consider something else? Or there's something else that we need to discuss? So going back to the customer, I think is one of the important steps, because that now is that when we have this back and forth discussion with the customer saying, this is what we find, this is what you can do with the Epicor, with the customization, what do you think? And then we start adjusting or modifying what we discuss and maybe adjust or components that we need to build. And once we are on the same page and that we are set with the customer, we need to move to one of the very complex and interesting part, which is the quote.
Yeah, and for that, it's important to not just consider the development time, but also the design phase of the project, the QA, which is pretty
Very important, yes.
and PM, right?
Right. Yeah, and all those tasks that you mentioned, it's really important because it's not just do the development and that's it. No, there are other areas involved. I mean, you need to be do some management of the project. So you need to, like the tasks that you need to do. You need to do the QA. You need to send them the billing reports and everything. So there is a lot that goes around a requirement, not just development. So once we present this quote to the customer, we also check like, okay, do you have an ETA? I mean, that's really important because sometimes they come in with like, okay, we need to have this customization done for the next month.
Correct.
And we're saying this customization, what you're looking for, maybe we need to do in phases. So we need to do phase 1 for 1 month and then phase 2. So that's really important to have an ETA discussion, which we usually do when we're talking about the quote. So once we have that, we discuss the alternative with the customer. We make sure we are in agreement on what we're going to build and the ETAs and everything. And once we have that, then I think we can move on to the next step.
And the next step is build a design document. It's pretty important to have something written to make sure that we are on the same page, to set up the expectation to the customer, the IT department from the customer, and the functional users of the ERP systems. So there is no issue there, right?
Right, and it's also a very critical phase because the design sometimes is overlooked by a lot of customers.
Yeah.
They don't think that we need a design document. It's like, oh, you can start working. But no, we need to have written what we're going to deliver to them. And we need to make sure that that's been well documented so that one, the customer can know what we're going to build for them, but also it's going to help the technical team to start building the custom components that we're going to need for this final solution. So I think that's very important phase that we need to spend some time there. And this kind of connects to the next step, which is build a proof of concept.
What is the proof of concept?
So the proof of concept is not the entire project. Sometimes we start building a small deliverable so that we can show the customer the screen. It's not going to be a fully functional. It's like a prototype.
Like a preview.
Preview of what we're going to deliver to the customer. So we show them that. And it helps a lot because the customer can see. So that they can see, oh, this is a screen, this has this button here and there, what type of action. So it helps a lot having the customer seeing this first review because it's going to help them give us some feedback if we're on the right path or we need to make some adjustments. So that's when we build the proof of concept. But in the same time, we keep the development going. So we just it's going to help us then to complete the entire project there.
Okay, and then we can go full hands with the complete development?
Yes, we complete the development. We need to make sure we follow our procedures to document all the delivery components and everything, but we also need to be sure to deliver all the components to the QA, which is going to be the resource. We're going to be the testing phase before we deliver to the customer. So we complete development. We do some internal check in the development team, but we pass that to the QA team so that they can do a more thorough QA testing for the final product.
Yeah, the testing cases are pretty important.
Correct,
because that's how we try to break the code, right?
That's why, you have to make sure that you think about the scenarios of the customer because sometimes we might have missed some scenarios. So that's important for a functional consultant to think maybe outside the box to say, how can I break this? Which is why we want to break it before we deliver to the customer.
Okay. So the last step would be to deliver to the customer, which are like the main important points on the delivery that we cannot miss.
So in here, the most important one is being able to deliver a document with all the components and a solution. In the Epicor world, where we build a solution with all the components there, which is BPMs, report, custom screens. So we need to make sure that we pack all that into a solution that we deliver to the customer. But all along with that is a document which lists all the components that are included in the solution, so that the customer can know what we build for them in case you need to move them from one environment to another. So documentation is really important, and the actual components as well.
Okay, great. It seems like a very complex but smooth list of steps in order to manage these type of projects.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ernesto. Well, here at Mayan Technologies, we understand that managing complex technical projects can be a challenge, but we're here to help, right?
Correct, yeah.
So if you're ready to tackle any projects, please contact us. Don't forget to visit our website.
Yes.
And click like, subscribe, and thank you for watching.
Thank you.